Hello again, this is Valerie Gaddis. I had a question that was posed to me on YouTube. How do you get the yarn that you've spun off of the spindle? That's a good question. It's always a good question. Every question's a good question. What we need to look at are quills and quill materials. You probably have seen one of my other YouTubes about how to begin with a quill, but what materials should we use? They are so varied. Traditional is corn husk. I'll show you that. What I tend to do and have done in the past and still continue to do, maybe I'm spinning quite a bit of yarn and I want some type of temporary storage, and later on I will ply them together with just a cardboard shoebox, lazy Kate, or any other kind of cardboard box. This is on, it looks like maybe just a coffee filter. I have used coffee filters before. Brown and white paper, it really makes no difference. Cut them to shape. This one I used wax paper, and we'll take a look at that later on too. So far, coffee filters, wax paper. This one's wax paper as well. Any more lately, since I finally found some corn husks that I like, I've been using the traditional corn husk. But the reason you might like wax paper, look how that slides, isn't that great? So once it's on the spindle, that little bit of wax paper that you put on there will help it slip right off, as well as your corn husk will. I like the wax paper and corn husk better than a coffee filter because it has that little slip to it, and the same way with the corn husk. We could even use plain old paper, parchment paper, whatever you have to make that quill. Some people use something interesting. They will take a straw, maybe even a natural reed, and they will cut it to length. This one's a little big. If we put it on the spindle, it's a little big. So what they'll do is they'll just slit it down the side with their scissors and then cut it to length. So then the next question is, what is the proper length of a quill? If I'm spinning an elliptical cup, I will hold it back maybe a good ½ inch or so from that bearing, because I don't want any yarn spun on the spindle at that point off of the quill. And I'll also hold it back maybe about an inch on that side. There's no magic in the measurement. It's just measuring it by your eye anymore. So there, if I slip that on, that is about the right length that I want. It could be even a shade shorter. Since it's still a little bit big, I could use a little piece of tape to secure that on a couple hands to kind of secure it on the spindle. I've not really ever used straws. A lot of people do. Another trick that a lot of people do using that straw, they will take a little piece of light cardboard and they will make a flange. Some of your spindles do have flanges. I don't spin in the cone style. I use the elliptical, but a lot of people like the cone style cup, and I think that's great. That's just fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want a little bigger flange, they will make another cardboard flange. And here I just used a piece of cardboard off of the tea box. No big secret there. They use a straw. They'll cut it to length, slit it, tape on the end. They've got a bigger flange then, and they're ready to go. So whenever they've got that full, they'll just slip that off and just put it in storage, and then they know maybe there's 150 yards on each one, and that way they can spin as much yarn as they need, knowing that they need a certain amount of yardage for sweaters or another project. Flanges, you can take the quill all the way to the end. Don't hold it back like you would if it were elliptical. Take your quill all the way to the end and butt it up against the flange. If you feel more secure, put a tiny piece of tape there, or just tape it on real tight with the quill so it won't slip whenever it's against the flange. I just don't use flanges. So then to prepare a corn husk, if I were using corn husk on this one, I would go ahead and just dampen it. If you're demonstrating, take a little bit of water or a damp paper towel in a baggie and take 2 or 3 corn husks with you if you're demonstrating, just to keep them damp during the day outside. This one's a little long, as you can see. I want some more exposure there, so I'll just cut it to length some more with some scissors. And now it's just about the right length for me to be able to use. Again, I'm keeping it back from the pulley or the whirl and also from the tip. And as I look at it, it probably could be even shortened a little bit more. And then I'll just wrap it around the spindle and then secure it with the yarn like I've shown you before in some of the other YouTube videos, where it's just tying on your leader onto that and looping it back again. And then whenever you're all done, you can just slip it off, put it onto a knitting needle, or maybe even a shish kebab skewer or a chopstick. That's really all there is to it. So whether you're using a straw or a natural reed or corn husk or wax paper or coffee filter or any other type of material, it really helps to use a quill. If you wanted to just wind off directly from the spindle, it's kind of cumbersome. It's really just easier to slip it off and keep going again. If you do use corn husk or straws or anything of that nature, something a little more permanent, once you've plied, you can probably reuse the corn husk quill once again, or the straw quill. You just keep using them over and over and over. I hope that answered some of the questions that you might have. Now's the time to be gathering corn husk, if you like, out of the field. It's fall, it's approaching harvest. But take a look around, be a little creative. Think like our ancestors did. They always had some brilliant thoughts how to come up with something and cope at the last minute. Or you might even like this little gadget. It looks like fun. So happy spinning. I hope you enjoy it. Bye-bye.